So I'm making a few changes going into 2023. So for all of 2022, I used this sight here. It's a 5-pin sight. And what I did like about it is that it's highly adjustable without any external tools such as this. So a lot of times this tool set is what I use to switch out a lot of the settings on the bows. With this sight, everything you need is built right onto it. So I could use that to adjust the pins on the spot. I didn't have to worry about forgetting this. However, I am going to be switching away from this this season. Mostly because of the size. It's really large and awkward, which I didn't like. So I'm going to be going for something a little more simple this year. I ordered this. This is just an experiment because we're not even to January yet, and the archery deer season isn't until next October. So I have plenty of time to experiment. But this is actually just a very old school sight. I think mostly intended for recurve, but a lot of the bows at my gun club are outfitted with these. So it's really just a single low profile sight, and it's just a single pin. So I'm gonna get back to that in a second. So these were the arrows I used all of 2022. So I really like these. They're pretty affordable in general for what I think is very good quality. I mean, just the craftsmanship is pretty interesting for that price. These are real turkey feathers. So I used these for the entirety of 2022, and I did like them, but the reason I'm going to be switching up this year is because I'm always looking at the shortcomings from the previous year when preparing for the next year and figuring out what I want to improve upon. So what I did find with these is these come stock at 31 inches, which I didn't think was a huge deal. However, they probably are about 3 inches too long, according to a spine chart for my draw weight. The draw weight on my bow is 63 pounds, and my draw length is definitely not anywhere close to 31 inches. So these are spined out at around 300 if I remember correctly. So they're pretty close to where they need to be, but this is definitely too long. So I have ordered about a dozen arrows to specific specifications. So I'm going shorter in 2023. So this is 31 inches. I'm cutting it down to 28. I changed the spine of the arrow I'm shooting from 300 to 340. Might be 350, but either way, pretty close. And that's closer to the specifications set forth in the arrow spine chart If you go on my Patreon, you'll find an image that is a pretty good chart, whether you have recurve or compound bow, that'll help you pick the right specifications for your arrows when you're buying them. So I went by that chart this year, and that's gonna, be one big change. It's just the length and the spine. Again, for those who don't know, spine refers to the flexibility of the arrow. So a 500 spine generally is more flexible than, say, a 300 spine. This is 300 spine. This is better for higher draw weights, whereas a 500 spine is better for lower draw weights. So, basically 500 means it's just more flexible than a lower spine. And that kind of helps control the wobble of the arrow while it's in motion. The other thing I'm really changing this year is these are real feathers, which I was kind of drawn to last year, especially because the year before I was shooting old school aluminum arrows, and a lot of those had real feathers, and I kind of got attracted to that during that time period. So what these will do is, at close range, these will help stabilize the arrow more, and I think it'll result in better accuracy at close distances. What I did find this year, though, and I had to do a little reading on it, was that beyond 20 yards, I could not hit a paper plate size target at the 30 and 40 yard targets at my range. We did a little competition leading up to the deer season, and we basically had to take a paper plate, put it at 10 yards, 20 yards, and 30 yards, shoot that paper plate. I could hit the 10 and 20 just fine, but when it came to 30, I could not hit it, and I couldn't figure it out for the life of me, because 3, 4, 5 years back, I had no problem hitting a paper plate to 50 yards, so I couldn't figure out what was going on. So I guess what ends up happening with these real feathers is they catch the wind a lot more, so the arrow then becomes subject to the wind a lot more than, for example, one of these blazers. So these blazers, they don't provide as much stability at close distances, but they don't catch the wind as much. And also, these big, real feathers, they produce a lot of drag on the arrow. So you're gonna, beyond 20 yards, once the initial energy runs out from getting launched from the bow, the arrow starts dropping a lot more than it would. So basically, an arrow like this, these little tiny things, this is gonna have a much flatter trajectory. So I think with something like this, you're sacrificing overall accuracy at 10 and 20 yards quite a bit, but you're gaining the ability to shoot 30, 40, 50 yards, and you have a much flatter trajectory, which, to be honest, is pretty important when hunting, because when hunting, it's not always so easy to determine how far your target is, so you don't want to be dealing with a lot of drop. So I think the theme for me personally this year is going to be going back to a flat trajectory. And I'm going to retire these arrows here for a while at least, and we'll see how it goes. So this is not the arrow, just an FYI, that I'm switching over to. This is actually just an arrow I had in my collection. This is really old. Yeah, I did order a bunch of new arrows. All the new arrows, they are, again, spine 340. They're set to 28 inches, which hopefully is perfect for my draw length. And they are going to have kind of like more of a blazer style vein on the back. So I'll be doing a test run shortly. So back to the site. So I ran this crazy 5-pin system, and what I don't like about this is that it is so big, it's heavy, it's cumbersome. Numerous times this year I knocked it, and I think I knocked it out of alignment, and then all of a sudden I got some head games going on where I'm not sure if you know, my shot's gonna be on or not. Back to these arrows, by the way, with this feather that came back to bite me in the butt this past season, because I had a turkey at 30 yards this past fall. I took a shot and I can't hit the paper plate at 30 yards. The arrow just went all over the place. You know, the drag took effect, the wind took effect, and I missed the shot. And that would have been my first fall turkey ever, and I blew it. I think if I had something more like this, I think I actually would have hit it. So we're changing things up. So anyway, we got this thing. Looks like it's gonna fit just fine. I might not end up liking this thing, you know, but what I'm really going for this year is simplicity, and I'm hoping to just run one single pin. And you know, that might sound crazy, but I'm hoping that I can get a flat enough trajectory with my new arrows where I can maybe sight it in for 20-25 yards, and that might be a nice average from 10 to 40 yards, where, you know, I might have to aim a little low at 10 yards, and then I might have to aim a little high at 30 or 40 yards. That might be the plan. It might not work out at all, but, you know, I'm just hoping, you know, I can use one pin as kind of like a point of reference. And I mean, if you really look at these pins, I mean, it's not a whole lot of distance between these, and these are actually sighted for this beast here. And I'm thinking with something like this, with a flatter trajectory, that generally means these pins are going to be closer together anyway. A couple of years ago I ran an arrow very similar to this, and that was so flat shooting. That thing was like basically straight from 10, 20, even 30 yards before it started dropping, and then 40 and 50 yards, you know, it dropped a little, but you know, really shot really flat. It was awesome for 3D archery tournaments. The downside to those arrows is these blazers. The quality of the glue job wasn't so great. And back then I was running a whisker biscuit, which, if you don't know what that is, it's like the little circle with the horsehair around it. So every time I shot the arrow, it went through that whisker biscuit. The arrows would kind of get all bent out of shape. But now I got this little thing here. This drops the moment the bow is released, so the arrow doesn't even have really much contact with the bow at all anymore. So taking this off shouldn't be too big of a deal. gonna just get this little sight off. So I don't know what's going to go on with this now, because this is where I attach my arrows. So this kind of clips on here typically, and I can hold the arrows right on the bow. It's a nice little handy thing, but currently I have that mounted to my bow sight, which has a place for it. Now when I switch over to this, this does not have a place for it, so I might be really messing myself up. So I'm doing what I usually do. I'm creating more work for myself, but it might be worth it in the end. What's going to end up happening, so I'm actually going to keep this sight. I'm not retiring it forever, but I'm going to see how things go without it. And I may find that I just want to get a little cheapo 3-pin sight rather than this big old lanky 5-pin sight. And you know, that might be the way I go. But it's a little ugly in there. Years of wear and tear. Okay. So simple enough install. This goes right here. Came with screws already. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna be mounting eventually. I'm gonna be mounting this right here, and that should still work out. That should work out just like that. That's nice. But what's gonna have to happen is I'm gonna have to get longer screws that'll go all the way through and mount right there. So that's gonna be more work. So we'll have to put an order in online for those. I ended up having to do that with my daughter's bow last year, so hers would fit. But I like the simplicity of this already. This is absolutely awesome. What I might not like is, you know, the size of this pin. I actually, just from shooting guns, I just know the smaller the pin, the better the accuracy. The other thing I can do is I can buy more of these metal pins, so I can actually maybe go to 2 pins if I have to. I could do like a 20 yard, and maybe a 50 yard. And that should do it. Because 20 yard, I can generally use my 20 yard pin for 10 yards. And then a lot of times the arrow doesn't start really dipping down until 40-50, so I could do like 20-40. You know, we'll see how things go. Yeah, there we go. Oh my god, that is so much lighter. That is nice. And then what I can do is I can actually already kind of set the pin at least approximately where the arrow is going to be lined up. So I can line up the string with the arrow rest, and I can see that's actually already lined up. That's perfect. So that is perfect. Nice and sleek. I literally just dropped quite a bit of weight off the bow. This thing itself is pretty heavy. So I'll probably put this in like a box of some sort and just hold on to it with all the hardware. Because I might, you know, want to... And this is actually front heavy too. So I'm holding this bow and it's like adding a lot of weight to the front. It's just a lot harder to handle. This, so it's not as light as my traditional bow, but it's definitely a lot lighter than it was. And then the other thing I could potentially do, so I don't need all this. This is just kind of sitting here sticking out. I wonder if I could just kind of chop that off at some point. You know, I'll just get a tool and just chop that off, because I don't need all this. It's just kind of useless. But yeah, that's gonna be my tentative setup for this year, and maybe again I'll think about purchasing an extra one. I'll be preemptive on that, even though I think I want to try and run a single pin. I will be preemptive and possibly order a second one, just so I have the backup on hand, because you know, again, I'd love to just run one and try to find a nice average, but I'm not sure that's gonna be 100% possible. So we'll see.